Washington and Lee University, known as Liberty Hall until 1796, was one of the first schools to accept a black student in 1799. But more than 200 years later, W&L is failing to attract minority students. Megan Riley is one of only 10 black students in the class of 2017.
It is definitely, noticeable once you step on campus and you're like one of very few African Americans on campus.
This fall, Dean Sidney Evans and Dean Tamara Futrell began meeting with a group of black students to come up with solutions to make these students feel more comfortable.
There are students who feel completely at home here, but there are also students who frankly sometimes feel like they don't have a peer group to turn to for support. I think there are students who sometimes feel marginalized by the Greek system. I think there are students who sometimes feel awkward navigating the social scene.
The administration has struggled to attract minority students for years. Last April, the Student Affairs Office brought in an outside consultant to lead focus groups with students of all backgrounds. Students were questioned about their experiences on campus as a minority and how they've been affected by it.
Some people had little things like even the waving of Confederate flags had really caught them off guard and made them feel offended, but also different comments in class or just someone not particularly familiar with African American hair and texture.
Over 80% of students at Washington and Lee are white, while less than 3% are black. Student Association for Black Unity President Nataki Hemmings says the lack of diversity goes beyond color.
Being from New York, it's very diverse. I interact with people of different races, of different ethnicities, of different backgrounds all day. And coming to Washington and Lee was a culture shock. It actually felt like culture was sucked out of this school more than I was introduced to new cultures.
Hemmings says she didn't expect students to downplay who they are.
It's a horrible thing to say that a person wants to blend in, but it's reality that people do.
Multicultural Student Association President Sarah Korash Schiff agrees. She says she expects more minority students to participate in MSA, but the organization has less than 30 members who regularly attend meetings.
Apparently there's 70 to 80 black students on this campus. I think I know 20. And I'm a president of a multicultural organization. I think that says something.
University officials say they realize that some minority students feel left out of Washington and Lee's social scene, which is dominated by fraternities and sororities. More than 80% of students are involved in Greek life.
I think the thing with Greek life is that because it defines where students, not only who they hang out with, but where they live and eat to a certain extent, it really does shape people's friend groups.
Korash Schiff says she thinks some white students have a negative view of minority students.
I think a lot of it has to do with just how people were raised in their culture, because that is a culture. Like people from the South who have grown up in 100% white families aren't exposed to different cultures when they're growing up.
Hemmings hopes the diversity of students will change in the future.
It's just something that's been so instilled in Washington and Lee, and it's a traditional school. We are based on traditions, and it's hard to change, and it's just something I think is just going to take time.
For The Reader, I'm Patrick McCarran.